So, keyword here, every modern home in America has one of these suckers in it right there, an island. I mean, sometimes there's a sink on it, sometimes there's an oven on it, maybe it's just extra countertop space with some storage underneath it. They increase the feng shui of any kitchen, so much so that you're gonna be as happy as this lady right here who's cutting up some vegetables for a lovely salad. Anyway, so we're gonna show you some easy steps on basically what you need to do to build you an island in about a day and a half, maybe 2 days tops. Your countertops, that's gonna vary, depends on what you're gonna do. But anyway, just go ahead and get some measurements of some base cabinets. Go measure from the front all the way to the back. And when I say back, you kind of want to know how big your countertops are going to be, like the actual countertop itself, whether it's going to be granite or quartz or formica or bricks or whatever you want. We need kind of those measurements from the start. And once you do that, you gotta have some 2x4s. So go to your local hardware store, pick up some 2x4s because we are gonna build a square. Literally a square. It's pretty simple to build this frame. Actually, what we're doing, it's called a knee wall. And we use this a lot when we're building bathrooms and stuff like that. But you see that square of wood? Anybody, and I mean anybody, can build that square of wood. Now, we are going to be using quartz countertops for our countertop. It's pretty heavy, so I'm actually adding an extra little brace kind of there in the middle. It doesn't have to be perfectly in the middle, just somewhere that it's going to be a little bit of an extra brace. Not only that, but I'm right now installing what's called a one gang service box. This is going to be an outlet. In our area, it's code whenever you have like an island that's fastened to the floor, like this is gonna be fastened to the floor, it has to have electricity, supplied to both sides of it. We're also gonna be installing a garbage disposal and a dishwasher, so we've gotta have electricity. Now, on the back side, right here, I'm installing a much bigger square. It's called a rectangle. So just take your measurements for that, whatever your kitchen cabinetry is. That's how big your rectangle is. Now, this is pretty long here. It's like 8 feet long. So what I did is just go ahead and run your tape measure from one side to the other side. And about every 16 inches or so, go ahead and put a marker there. We're gonna use that little mark to add some support studs basically inside every 16 inches. You can do every 24 inches or you can do every 3 feet. It just kind of all depends on how heavy your countertop is. And when you're all done, this is kind of what it looks like. Literally just a bunch of squares. Now, really important, this right here is called a shim. Before we actually screw everything together, these shims need to be at the bottom of all of your cabinetry. We do that so that we can have them perfectly level for our countertop to sit on. Once we kind of have it all placed where we wanted it to be and it's level, now we can fasten the little knee walls, those little squares, those little rectangles that we just made to the cabinets themselves. And we're using special cabinet screws for this. They'll be linked down below to what kind you need for this. So you screw the backs to the knee wall, and we also need to screw the front of the cabinets to each other. For that, you need some clamps. And when you go to screw your cabinetries together, it's really important to drill a pilot hole first. We want this hole to be just a little bit smaller in diameter than the actual cabinet screw that we're going to be using. And fortunately, we have these, since our cabinets are white, we're using these white cabinet screws. Now, the doors are off, and I'm actually screwing this in where the doors are going to be, so you're never going to see these screws. So you want to screw them at the bottom, and you want to screw them up at the top. And like I said, you're never going to see these. You just screw them in to as deep as the screw is flush. Depending on your cabinets, that's how long your screw will be, maybe 1 inch or 2 or 3. Good. When stuff just works out, you feel good. You know what I'm saying? Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So this is a paddle bit, a 3/4 of an inch paddle bit. In our area, like I said, we have to run electricity. So our special guest with us today, Miss Nastojka, is gonna be boring or drilling a bunch of little holes in all of our studs so that we can safely and effortlessly run this Romex, this 212 wire. We're gonna be hooking up a garbage disposal and a dishwasher and some outlets, so we have to do this here. You may not have to do it, so just check with your local building codes to see if you need to do it. Even if they say you need to, you may just skip that. Do whatever you want is what I'm trying to say. So anyway, moving on, we are drilling a bigger hole now. This is about an inch, 2 1/4 inch hole. That's so that we can run all of our supply lines for our dishwasher to this drain that we're gonna be drilling right here. We're just gonna be using that same 2 1/4 inch drill bit to drill through that 2x4 and our floors into the crawl space so that we can insert this PVC pipe. This is a 2-inch PVC pipe that I'm cutting with a reciprocating saw or a sawzall or a skill saw, whatever you call that thing. We're using it to cut this PVC pipe for our drain lines.
We lucked out major. There's actually a pier right here, and this thing is actually sitting on the pier. If we wiggle it around, we can get it past the pier and through the crawl space a little bit better. But I got to go underneath the house in the crawl space and hook this up to the draining system of the house itself. I'm going to be back here in about 3 seconds. Okay.
Now we are installing a very nifty supporting mounting bracket thing for our water supply lines. You literally just screw it to the studs, and if you're going to be using this, you want to screw it on the side of the studs that is closest to where you want your water supply lines to lead out to, or basically like the side of the studs that your sink's going to be located. Once you do that, it's time to bore those holes for our water supply lines. We are actually using PEX. PEX is easy as this. You literally get like a metal crimp ring collar, you slide that sucker on, and then you put any attachment you want. Here I'm just using a stud or a stub out, whatever it's called. I'm gonna supply this with water instantly. Anyway, once you do that, the only other tool you need is a bulky looking pair of pliers or scissors or wrench, whatever this thing's called, and you just squeeze the dickens out of that ring and you have an instant watertight seal. It's easy peasy lemon squeezy. Now, see that purple thing? That is a 90-degree elbow conduit specifically for PEX. We are using 1/2 inch. That purple thing locks into, and I mean it literally locks into that metal supporting bracket we installed about 3 seconds ago. So if you have kids or cats that like to find their way into your cabinetry and move around, they're not gonna bump those out of place. Moving on, this is now, we're coming to the end here, kind of. This is the island. We're actually wrapping it with birch plywood. You can wrap it with tile or shiplap or beadboard, whatever you want. We went with birch plywood. Now, once you do that, you're gonna end up with some seams that you're gonna need to trim out. We're actually trimming out all the corners and some of the seams of that birch plywood with 1x4s and 1x6s. You can use whatever you want, really. This is what we went with. This is just a pine 1x4 that we're installing right now. We have some 1x6s there. And we have a nail gun, and that's what we use. And this is kind of what it looks like. We're all trimmed out with the birch plywood as the main thing. Now, anytime you work with wood, you gotta sand it. You know what I'm saying? Get you like 400 grit sandpaper or 200 grit or a high grit sandpaper and sand it until it is smoother than a baby's bottom. Now after that, we are using a stain. Well, it's really a whitewash, it's not a stain. It technically is a stain, but we just wanted to kind of lighten it up. This is 99% transparent. You just put it on, you wipe it off, and you let it dry. Once it's dry, we're going over it with a coat of polyurethane. I think we did like 2 coats of polyurethane. Anyway, as you can see, as you coat that polyurethane on the wood, you develop this glass-like finish. And just in case Nana spills some tomato sauce on your wood, you can wipe it right off. That polyurethane is a good protective coat, and it's shiny.
Okay, so welcome to the bottom side of the sink. Real quick, so we've installed our packs. This is really easy to hook up these shut-off valves for our water. Your sink is gonna require probably a 3/8 size. That's, if you take this little guy right here, this shut-off valve right here, fits a 3/8 fitting.
So we are moving on with the percussion ring, or the percussion ring, or the succussion ring, some type of X-shunt ring. It's that decorative metallic wafer there. People expect to see that anytime you have a water supply thing leaving your wall. Instead of having a gaping hole there, we put these something shunt rings there to cover it up. Anyway, so right now I'm hooking up a T. This is gonna feed hot water to the dishwasher and the sink. Now I'm using a T because my hardware stores, plural, didn't have one of those unibody shutoff valves that had two 3/8 ports on it just already built in. So I gotta make this T. Not what I wanted to do, but in any case it'll work out just fine. It's not really a big deal. Now we take this sucker and we shove it in the hole. Kadoosh, kadoosh, kadoosh. Just have it all the way down like that. Oh yeah, that's gonna look good. Here. Okay, it doesn't really matter, like these, it doesn't really matter, it's not really marked which is hot and which is cold. So this can go on the left or it can go on the right. Typically, your water supply lines, hot is always on the left and cold is on the right. And your faucet will be marked left or right, but this faucet isn't marked, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter which is hot and which is cold. Now, everything is hooked up, I think, you know what I'm saying? Faucet's hooked up. The soap thing has been put in. Great, now I just spilled stuff. The soap thing has been put in. Moment of truth. Does this actually not leak? Well, we're about to find out. Skadoosh. What I'm checking to see if for any leaks, is there any water coming down around the garbage disposal itself? Because this is directly connected to the drain of the sink bay, basin, whatever it's called, container itself. So I'm looking for water. You want to fill your P-trap, you know, you want to really do your due diligence and fill around, make sure there's no water. Make sure there's no water leaking around any of your supply lines, nothing. You want it to be dry as a bone in the middle of a desert, you know what I'm saying? Which it is. So this, my friends, is a job well done. I know that we already showed that the water works, but now it works on a clean surface, and we have this thing right there, and you know, there's no dust, there's no dirt, there's no grime anywhere. I can literally go like this, and I'm not dirty. When it is usable grade, and you just feel really good. You know what? It pumps you up to go to the next job. So until then, see you there.
Now, you know a lot of people like to employ crackheads on your job site. I am not the only one, but let me tell you that Danny Duncan, he comes in on time, under budget, and hyper tough. And I even make your house better, stronger, and more secure than I found it. Case in point, sometimes your crackhead, well, he's got a really low standard, okay? His mind's on crack, okay? Danny Duncan's standard is high as a kite. Look at this. Let me show you how this crackhead fucking jerry-rigged this wire. Look at this, look at this. Look. What the fuck is that? Oh my God, look. Oh. Every now and then and again, Your crackheads just don't know how to do shit. And you gotta come behind them and you correct their asses, okay? They ain't gonna get no crystal meth if they wiring and jerry rigging shit like that, okay? And that's your hypothetical.